The rain came in sideways off Clement Street that Tuesday, and Delia Marsh was grateful, as she always was on wet evenings, for the vestibule at Aldgate and Sons. It was a narrow rectangle of warmth between the outer door and the inner, a place to shake out an umbrella, to let your eyes adjust to the amber light, to feel the low hum of voices and the soft percussion of cards from the rooms beyond. Delia had been a member for 11 years. She knew the vestibule the way she knew her own kitchen, the coat hooks at shoulder height, the framed photograph of the original Aldgate brothers in their shirt sleeves, the brass umbrella stand that always listed slightly to the left. She was working the buckle on her raincoat when the outer door opened and the woman stepped in from the street. She was perhaps mid-40s, black, and dressed in a dark wool coat that rain had darkened at the shoulders. She carried a small leather briefcase and moved without any particular hurry, the kind of composure that has nothing to prove. She approached the front desk, where Preston Halve was finishing a word with one of the regulars, and she waited. She did not fidget. She did not check her phone. She simply stood, with the stillness of someone who has waited in many rooms and knows the cost of it. Preston finished his conversation, turned, and looked at her. "Evening," he said. "Can I help you?" "Good evening," she said. "Renee Okafor. I'm here for the Tuesday session." Preston's eyes moved, just briefly, to the binder on the desk. His hand did not open it. "Membership here is invite only," he said. "I don't have you in the system." "My name should be there," she said. Her voice was level, not cold, not loud, just precise. "Okafor." Preston made a show of consulting something below the desk. Delia could not see what he looked at. She could see, quite clearly, the three members who had come in ahead of this woman. Gerald Foss, who had walked straight past the desk with a wave. Clara Whitmore, and her husband, who had been met with a smile and waved through before they had finished unwrapping their scarves. Nobody had asked any of them for their names. "I'm not seeing it," Preston said. He straightened. His voice had taken on the particular texture of a man who has made a decision and wants to make it sound like policy. "We have a waiting list for new members. If someone referred you, they can reach out to the membership secretary. There's also a service entrance around on the side. If you're here for—" "Oh, for what?" Renee Okafor said. Quiet, factual. Preston stopped. "I'd like to know," she said, "what you assumed I was here for." The vestibule held its breath. Delia's hand was still on her coat buckle. She was aware, in a way she had not been 30 seconds ago, of exactly where she was standing and exactly what she was watching. Preston did not answer the question. He said instead, "If you'd like to come back with a letter of introduction from a current member." "Thank you," Renee Okafor said. She reached into her coat pocket and produced a small notebook. She wrote something in it. Then she looked up at Preston Halve and said, "I appreciate your time. Could you tell me the time, please?" It's 7:42, he said, confused now. "Thank you." She wrote that down too. She closed the notebook. She said, "Good evening," and she walked back out into the rain. The outer door swung shut. The rain tapped against the glass. Preston turned back to the desk as though something unremarkable had occurred, as though every decision he had just made was simply the shape of a Tuesday. Delia watched him reach for his phone and scroll without focus, the way people do when they want to look occupied. She stood in the vestibule for another few seconds, long enough to know she should have said something and hadn't, and then she walked through into the card room, and her mind would not settle all evening. She played 3 hands of gin rummy with people she had played with for years. She lost twice. She ordered her usual tea and left it half-finished. The conversation at her table moved, as it always did on Tuesday evenings, through familiar territory. Grandchildren, weather, the slow renovation of the building across the street, and Delia contributed words in the right places, without ever quite hearing her own voice. What stayed with her was not the moment itself but the woman's voice, the absolute steadiness of it, the way she had asked her question without heat or theater, the way she had written the time in her notebook like someone marking evidence. She kept coming back to that notebook. It was small, dark-covered, the kind of thing you buy at a drugstore and keep in a coat pocket. Not a formal document, not a complaint form, just a notebook. And the woman had reached for it without drama, without announcement, the way a person reaches for a tool they have used before. Delia understood, sitting there with her cooling tea, that Renee Okafor had known, the moment Preston spoke, exactly what kind of moment she was in. She had documented it while it was happening. She had thanked him for the time and written it down. She had been, in some sense that Delia was only now working out, entirely prepared for Preston Halve before she ever walked through the door. The preparation had simply been invisible. Invisible the way competence so often is, until the moment it is needed. What Delia had not done was say a word. She had stood 4 feet away. She had watched Gerald Foss walk through with a wave. She had watched Clara Whitmore and her husband sail past without a pause. She had watched this woman give her name, hear it dismissed, and be pointed toward the side entrance for staff and deliveries. And she had buckled her coat and gone in to play cards. It was that, the coat buckle, the ordinary gesture of a woman getting on with her evening, that Delia kept returning to, and that she could not make sit right. 41 minutes after Renee Okafor walked back into the rain, the outer door of Aldgate & Sons opened again. Delia was walking toward the kitchen to return her teacup. She happened to be in the hallway. She happened to be the first person to see what came through the door. Renee Okafor stepped into the vestibule. Her coat was the same. The briefcase was the same. But she had added a lanyard, a state seal, printed text in a font that did not leave room for interpretation, and she held her briefcase open in the crook of her arm now, revealing a tablet. On the tablet screen, Delia could see at the top of the page, in clear dark type, the words, State Gaming Board, Operating License Renewal Application, and below it, the name of this club. She walked to the desk. Preston Halve looked up from his phone. She set a single card on the desk. Not pushed, not dropped, placed. Renee Okafor, she said, Senior Compliance Inspector, State Gaming Regulatory Office. Your license renewal is scheduled for review. I am the lead examiner. She turned the tablet so he could see the screen. I was assigned to conduct a preliminary site visit this evening, unannounced, as the protocol requires. Preston looked at the card. He looked at the lanyard. He looked at the screen. Something in his face went through several stages, none of them quick. The preliminary visit, she continued, began at 7:42. I've noted the door interaction in the site log. I'll need to speak with your operating manager before I begin the floor review. She opened her notebook, the same small notebook she had written the time in 41 minutes ago, and set it on the desk in front of her. If you'd like to call your manager now, I can wait. She waited. She waited with the same quality of stillness she had brought the first time, the kind that fills a room not with pressure, but with the simple weight of the truth. Delia stood in the hallway and did not move toward the kitchen. She watched Preston's hand pick up the desk phone and put it down and pick it up again. She watched him dial. She watched his face, while he spoke in a low voice she could not hear. In less than 4 minutes, Raymond Ostler, the operating manager, a careful man in his 60s who Delia had always found polite, came down the inner staircase. He saw the lanyard. He saw the tablet. He saw the card on the desk. He introduced himself and extended his hand to Renee Okafor, and he said something in a quiet voice, and she replied in the same register, and whatever passed between them was, Delia understood, the beginning of a conversation that would not be over tonight. She went to find paper. It took her 3 minutes to locate a notepad in the members' writing room, and another minute to find a pen that worked. She sat down at the table by the window, with the rain still talking against the glass, and she wrote, in the handwriting of a woman who had taught school for 31 years, a full account of what she had witnessed at 7:42 that evening. The 3 members waved through without name or query. The woman who gave her name and was told it was not in the system, the offer of the service entrance, the question about the time. She did not editorialize. She described only what she had seen. She signed her name, her membership number, her telephone number, and the date. When she came back to the vestibule, Renee Okafor was doing what she had, Delia now understood, come here to do. She moved through the public rooms of the club with Raymond Ostler, 2 respectful paces behind her, her tablet held level, her stylus making notes. She was not punitive in her manner. She was not triumphant. She was simply working, with precision and without theater, the way a person works when they know exactly what they are doing and do not need anyone's acknowledgement to do it well. Delia approached her during a pause near the East Card Room. Miss Okafor, she said. I was in the vestibule at 7:42. I saw what happened. She held out the folded notepad page. I'd like you to have this. Renee Okafor looked at her for a moment, not unkindly. Then she took the page, unfolded it, read it, and looked up. "Thank you," she said. "What is your name?" "Delia Marsh." "How long have you been a member here, Mrs. Marsh?" 11 years, Delia said. Renee wrote the name in her notebook. "Your account will be included in the site report," she said. "Thank you for coming forward." She paused. "It matters." Delia went back to the card room. She finished the evening. For the first time in several hours, her mind was quiet. The findings from the preliminary site visit were documented that night and filed the following morning. The review record showed that Aldgate & Sons Social Club, holding gaming license number 4471C, pending renewal under the State Gaming Board's 90-day review cycle, had received 6 formal complaints over the preceding 22 months, each alleging inconsistent door entry practices applied on the basis of race. The site visit of that Tuesday evening had been scheduled, in part, because of those complaints. The lead examiner's site report, logged at 9:17 the following morning, documented the door interaction of 7:42 p.m., with specificity, the name provided, the refusal of entry, the offer of a service entrance, the simultaneous admission of 3 white members without name check or inquiry, and the statement made about the purpose of the woman's visit, a question that had gone unanswered. The report noted that the member witness account of Delia Marsh corroborated the inspector's contemporaneous notes in every material detail. Preston Hove was placed on administrative leave the following day, pending a full personnel review. The club's operating board received a formal notice of compliance irregularity and was summoned to a hearing before the State Gaming Regulatory Office within 30 days. License 4471C, renewal application pending, was placed in suspended status, while the conduct review was completed. The renewal could not proceed until the board demonstrated, through documented policy revision and staff retraining, that entry procedures were applied without discrimination. Raymond Ostler, to his credit, did not contest the findings. He called Delia 3 days later, not to explain but to say he was sorry. Sorry for what the woman had encountered at his door, and sorry that it had taken a state examiner and a member's written account for him to find out it had been happening at all. He asked Delia if she would be willing to speak with the Policy Review Committee. She said she would. Renee Okafor filed her final report 11 days after the site visit. She had not raised her voice once during the entire evening. She had not needed to. There was a line near the end of the site report, not the conclusion, not the formal finding, just a factual sentence in the body of the narrative, that Delia would later say she had thought about many times. She had not seen the report itself. Raymond had read her the line over the phone, with something in his voice that sounded like a man realizing something he should have realized long before. The line read, "The inspector noted that the door interaction, from the first refusal to the offer of the service entrance, lasted 4 minutes and 30 seconds, during which no policy document was produced, no membership record was accessed, and no name was verified. The time elapsed between the inspector's departure and her return with credentials was 41 minutes. In that interval, the club's operating status did not change. Only the inspector's visibility did. Delia had written it down in the same notepad she'd used that Tuesday night. She kept it in the drawer of the writing room table, under the window where the rain had been. It seemed, to her, the kind of sentence a room ought to remember.